Very good morning to everyone. It's a Saturday morning, sunny, and it's really very good. Thanks for coming down for my session, SQLBITS 14 on Lifesaver Resource Governor for Applications and Reporting. So this is my second one with SQLBITS. So without these sponsors, this event will not be successful. So please ensure to give feedback accordingly as well. And I just want to give this slide because it's been exactly an year since we lost our MH370. So I just want to bring that to our attention that we still remember that the unfound plane is still out there. People are still trying to find that one. So tribute to that one. About myself, I'm a principal consultant and trainer at SQLMan Limited, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I've been training for since 1999 actually. So been using the SQL Server almost around the same time. For more information, if you want to know about me and my company, you can visit yoursqlman.com, and for any information you can send info@yoursqlman.com. For your information, this session is going to be 75 minutes duration, and it will be good if you can silence your phones and any other gadgets. And if you want to use the restrooms, you know where it is, so you can feel free to go on. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer it as much as I can. But we'll try to keep it at the end to ensure that we can finish up the slides and the actual demos what we have for this session. And before I want to move on, I just want to see what my audience are, what's your knowledge and capacity about what we are trying to learn about this session actually. So I've got a few questions. So if anyone can just say about very basic things. Memory. I'm sure you have basic, intermediate, advanced users who are in this area, but you all know about memory. So anyone can just get information about memory, something that what others do not know, something like that. Okay, so in terms of memory, we all know that's a very basic things what we definitely need in terms of performance side, right? So memory plays a crucial role, and now we have got this in-memory platform things as well. So the main other things are CPU. So CPU and memory, these two are the very core information things that we definitely need in terms of any performance-based platforms. I/O. So how many of you have issues in I/O? Plenty. Do you know the reasons why we do have these sort of issues? We cannot blame memory and CPU, but we have main 4 areas where we really need to blame on. So one among them is also input and output with the data units. And I'm sure we all know the applications and databases. I don't have to give an introduction about that one. So we all work with applications on a day-to-day basis, and any applications, they do have some sort of databases which we are trying to maintain and manage in terms of OLTP and also for reporting purpose. And last but not the least, resource governor. How many of you have worked with resource governor? One. And how many of you heard about resource governor and what it does actually? Good. How many of you know driving? How many of you drive in this country? All of you. So we all know driving. So the reason why I'm trying to bring driving in here is like, how many of you DBA or developers over here? Just DBAs? Okay, so loads of DBAs over here. So you are here to learn something about how you can drive your business, you can drive your applications and reporting and the memory and CPU with that sort of thing for all your application side. But I'm not only going to talk about that driving, but also a regular driving, so which I will pick up in the next slides. On completion of the sessions, you all will be in a position to have some knowledge and understanding about memory, CPU, I/O, workloads, resource consumptions, how the consumptions are there, to understand applications and priorities. So how do you need to prioritize, and why do you need to prioritize, on what basis, what are the requirements that you need to have, and you will know some information about resource governor, and you will have segregation of users and service accounts. I'm having a clear demo on how you can really see things out there, and clear lanes and disciplines. So again, I was talking about the driving. We need to know the clear lanes and discipline. Once you know that on the roads, and you would definitely better understand how the resource governor would work too. So I've got a dozen of topics over here, which I will try to finish it by the set time. I want to give a quick information about the applications. We all use applications in our day-to-day life. even in our mobile phones, applications, in our office, so in our corporate environments, we do make use of everything. And for any applications, it cannot be successful until you have a proper database. So you need to have a proper RDBMS where you will have good performance. So it's not just having the SQL Server or Oracle or MySQL, any database, but it is about what sort of environment, what sort of architecture you have in place, right? So that will enable any applications to succeed. And again, so you are not going to stop if you have a proper application on a database, but you need to see what's actually happening, for which you definitely need reporting purpose. So being here in SQLBITS, we all understand that we are here for database and business intelligence, analytics, reporting, plenty of things. So anything to do about data. So we have loads of users who make use of applications, and we have loads of developers who develop the database and applications, and we have plenty of business users who make use of applications and reporting. So we have various types of users. We need to distinguish and give priorities for the applications and for the accounts, whatever we have, which we'll see in a minute. To make you all comfortable, I have made sure that I've got some slides for you to feel and understand what exactly we are trying to talk about in terms of resource governance. So I'm giving you an example of how our UK roads, the motorways, how it is. So in here, you see the performance is really a problem. You have good cars, it can perform good, but with this sort of traffic, you cannot drive properly. It is a very basic thing what everyone have to accept. It's a performance problem what we have. And you have a very big architecture and something like a very big project, and you see bicycles and kids on the roads, on the motorways. Would you be happy to have a very big motorway just for people to ride a bike? So what purpose we are doing it? So we need to ensure that we have our SQL Server or any database or any application architecture, we need to know the purpose of it. So what purpose you're going to do it? You've got to spec it accordingly. Based on that, you're going to design your systems. And this is the place where you go to talk about the architecture bits. It's not only about how you're going to design your project, but also to design about your architecture based on the actual requirements. What are you going to expect? How you can scale up and scale down easily? So there are plenty of things that you need to address moving forward. So let's have a quick look about the better architecture. So would it be easy for you to see this sort of architecture where you will have too many number of things, but you have no performance issues? But how long it's going to take? It's a very, very expensive project in terms of these roads-based systems and the bridge, and in terms of our SQL Server environment as well. So you need to have proper rollback and everything. You need to have proper servers, and you need to have proper DBAs who can work on it and have enough knowledge and sufficient information for that one. This is a simple example of a better architecture, how you can do, but this is not relevant to what we're going to talk about, but this is an example of how your user would do, and you'll have two servers. If one goes down, the other one picks up. So plenty of things that we have in terms of architecture, disaster recovery, and plenty of things. But we are going to address here for the very poor architecture. There are still various companies, many companies, they do have one big large database, which is a backend database for many applications. Plus, you also have users using the reporting, and also business users using the same database for ad hoc. How many of you in these sort of environments? So you have one application and you have one database or many applications. You'll have reporting again pointing to the same live databases, and you have business users who are harassing and hammering the service. So in this typical situation, we have to address the reporting is a very important one, and the application is a very, very important one, because that is the end application where the users are going to make use of it. So performance matters. I just want to give you a real example of what a performance would be in terms of in your corporate world, and also in terms of other areas. So in here, we are seeing for any database to perform very good, you need to have a proper CPU, you need to have proper memory, you need to have proper disk I/O and network. These four are the main important things that you definitely need to take care of. These, the key ones are the CPU part, the CPU usage, and the memory. Okay? So this resource governor is going to target about CPU and memory, and I will give you further information at the end of the slides about what we can do for the rest. I'm just giving you examples of how your performance can slow down in a high-end service because of the unexpected nonsense attitudes. What do we mean by nonsense attitudes? In a live application, in a working environment, you have users, business users, who run ad hoc queries. How many of you been in a situation where a business user runs ad hoc query and bringing the whole server down? Plenty. So this is an obvious problem for every one of us. Imagine you have a project where four-legged, four horses taking a walk on a motorway. What's going to happen? The policing part, the DBA role, the admin, the managers, what are they going to do in these sort of environments? So you got to take care of not harming the animals, you got to make sure that it goes to its destination, and you have to go behind it until it reaches the place, and you need to make sure that there are no accidents on the roads. So you have to balance them all, everything. How do you see about this? A big ostrich on the motorways. So you got to ensure that you need to have proper animal rescue people to come down and help. So they are not using motorways, they are using their own roads and the forest. In here, so you have a duck. What happens to the cars going in a duck speed? We don't need ducks nowadays because we are in very much traffic. We are held up in traffic. So because of this, a person who is driving on that particular lane, he is trying to overtake to the other lane. So what happens during that time? He's trying to block others. And you need to prioritize who needs to go first, who needs to go to the next one. And definitely, you don't want to be in this position at all. Do you want to go in a top speed? That's not good. So we clearly can see a motorways or in a proper corporate environment where you have a proper database and applications things, you don't want to allow any business users to run any ad hoc queries. Give them a separate server, separate instance, separate things, but do not allow them. But here we are trying to address what sort of problems we are having in terms of applications and reporting and business users and developers. We are trying to segregate 4 different sorts of users. And still, there are so many people. I'm not really behind these business users, but they run ad hoc queries. They know a little bit of SQL Server and a little bit of T-SQL, and they have books on their table how to learn T-SQL in 24 hours. So that's not going to give them a life, but that's going to really kill the business. They are running the queries. There are people who know clearly that they are going in tortoise speed. They're trying to block others. But there are also people like this who purposely want to stop. They don't want to move forward. They don't want to give way to others. So you got to ensure you get rid of all of these ones. So for this, you need to have animal rescue and plenty of things, whereas in our case, we need to have proper management in terms of who can access what and at what speed they can access. So these are all the things what we are trying to address here. And I'm going to bring some lane discipline over here. I'm not trying to going beyond the topics, but I'm trying to give what you can understand in terms of resource governor that can help you to see, for which I need to give you some few pictures for you to understand. So this is a message from one of the city, Bangalore. So it says, do you find the traffic police here? So if they can follow the lane discipline, why can't you? So they can go, but why don't we? And even when you have a clear lanes, and when you don't have a clear lanes, you try to overtake, you believe that the other one will be much better than my one. So you try to go to the other lanes. So you have to ensure that you have proper lane disciplines. Yep. I'm giving you a scenario and a prop examples of how a resource governor would be related to. So in here you have 4 lanes. The first one is the executive and red cars, for which we need to really target on. Imagine if the tortoise going in the first lane, what happens? So we have problems. And you have all of the traffic chain link, and we have third one is lorries and losers, and the fourth one is the optional. So plus you also have this ambulance and fire engine and police and government. So these sort of things, they can take any lanes whenever they want to. Now in terms of these executive things, I'm just trying to give a resource governor how we are going to segregate these areas. So we have applications. We need to ensure in any environment, we need to have applications to be performing good and better. And I'm segregating the second lane for services, service accounts for reporting. So we need to set up some sort of service accounts, users and groups and you have to segregate them. And you have developers and you have business users. We have 4 lanes. So this is what we're going to use it for our resource governor examples as well. And in the previous slide, we had the police, government, and everything, other vehicles, ambulance, and here we have internal and default. So we got to segregate those things as well. In terms of internal, I'll give you much explanation on those ones. This is the only lane where you cannot stop anything. Whenever they want to, they can take any lane. How many of you have seen Lamborghini Goista, the world's fastest car? So you want to make sure that that car is not going to be stopped at any cost, not like tortoises or black birds. And you have a separate lane for service accounts, for reporting, and you have for developers, and you have some for business users. So you need to ensure that you have clear lanes policies and people can go in. If you have a SQL user or application which needs to be prioritized, you need to prioritize accordingly in terms of your resource governing things. In here, I'm giving you examples of service account application and service account reporting. You have one account for each. I'm taking an example of that. I have 4 developers and 5 business users. If they want to make use of the memory and CPU of the actual live application systems, what are they going to do? They're going to create chaos. So it's going to be too many sessions. You won't be in a position to say who is going to have this many number of resources and who is going to have more allocation of memory. Now, we are trying to come up with a solution with resource governor here, where these people are grouped into 4 different groups. So user group UG for application, for reporting, developers, and business. If you have more than one application, you can all group them all into one application. Let's say if you have 5 applications, you have only one application to perform better compared to the others, you need to put that as a separate group. So here, any sessions, any users who are coming from these areas needs to be in that group where we are stopping them and we are getting a classifier function. So I'll give you much explanation on what we have to do. So this is one of the main component of resource governor. This is the center point for any users or any sessions coming to the SQL server will divide their ways to the other workload groups and resource pools. So next to the classifier function, we have the workload groups. Of these, we have example of 4, and we have default and internal. In here, underneath the work group, you also have the resource pools. So the resource pool, workload group, and classifier function are the main important things which you need to really play with in terms of resource governor thing. So when any session is coming out from any of these, then that can go to the memory and CPU accordingly. So if a user, developer 1 and developer 2, they're trying to log into the server, and if we have the classify function derived properly, their role will definitely go to WG developers and RP developers. And whatever resources that you have said, I only want to give them 5% of the resources of the whole server, that only controls that. So here you can see the clear understanding of how people can go into the server with amount of resources that are allocated to them. Quick information about resource governor. So this was introduced in 2008 onwards, and it is available in all SQL Server Enterprise Developer and Evaluation editions. So Microsoft is keep improving their products day by day, and we have very major ones in 2014 edition. So it also have the ability to classify connections and route the workloads accordingly, and it is limited to SQL Server Engine only. It is self-contained and instance specific. A server in Enterprise edition can have up to 15 instances. So if you have resource governor with one instance, then that is not applicable for the other instances. You need to configure them again. So it's easy to script out for you, so you can do it in that way. And this applies to CPU and memory consumptions only. But I'm going to give some information about what else you can do with the latest versions of SQL Server 2014. The 3 main concepts which I've already said is the resource pool, workload group, and classification. So in the resource pool is the place where you would say what is the minimum memory and what is the maximum memory, what is the minimum CPU and maximum CPU you got to use. And you've got a workload group which will categorize who are the users and what are the workload groups that we have. It is the place which is going to say routes. And classifier function is the place you can have many classifier functions, but only one can be active at the same time, but you can switch anytime you want to. This will then decide which session goes to which groups. Some more information. You have system views specifically designed for resource governor. So you have 3 important things: governor configuration, resource pools, workload groups, to see what are the 3 main concepts what we have seen already. Plus you also have dynamic management views, which are very clear to get all the measures, what are the feedbacks that we are getting from the server itself. So we can see those things from the resource governor from these DMVs. And we have the performance counters. Microsoft has got performance counter for every single thing. So if you use a performance monitor, you want to see how this resource pool and workload groups are performing. You can make use of these group states and the pool stats to see how the actual CPU usage and memory things are performing. I have very good examples for you to clearly visualize on what we are actually talking about. And this is a typical scenario of a dangerous driving. I'm trying to convey a message as well where we need to take care of us. So it's not only about you guys being a DBA, how you drive your team, how you drive your requirements, how you drive your business, but how you drive to your business place as well. So a new trainee running a query which occupies the fast lane. Imagine this guy who is trying to drive from 4th lane to the 1st lane, fast lane. What is he going to do? He's actually making problem to the application, slows down as the resources are totally occupied. Plus there is also a problem because there could be accidents and there could be so much of traffic jam, plenty of things. So I'm just trying to mix and match with all the terminologies in the resource governor and also in terms of performance with the driving examples. What do we need to do to ensure this resource governor should be there? So this is not only about the technical things but also about the management lines. As a DBA, you need to be in a position to better recommend your management what exactly measures that you have to take. Proactive measures. You need to ensure that people are going in the right speed in the right place. They're not over speeding or they're not slowing down, they're not going to stop anything. So you got to have proactive measures, something that's not going to happen. And you also need to have a reactive measures. What's going to happen after an accident has happened? So I have seen this plenty of times and I want to really see, like, if any accident is being happened, you need to make sure that you're closing that out. Nobody is going to see that out. So more than the accident, the people are trying to queue up and they want much interested to see what's actually happening. So they're queuing up, they're slowing the traffic, there are plenty of things. But after the incident's place, then the lanes are very fast. So you need to be ready to do what sort of reactive measures that you're going to do. Then you need to be in a position to be recovery for a DBA in terms of how you would recover if anything has happened. And this is the recovery by developers and users. Then the users are going to call me. Business users 1, 2 and 3, okay, come on, let's sit and talk. So it's not somebody like policing or DBA people are coming to help you, people help themselves. Disaster recovery, again, you don't want to park your car underneath a lorry on the truck, so you definitely need to be in a position where you know you're going safely. I'm trying to give some messages here and there, examples of how this is a comparison of what will happen in terms of SQL Server world as well if there are too many blocks and problems. Again, our SQL Server would need to be in a position on a brand new one like this, but we don't want to see in such an environment where nobody is using it for a very big project. Would you be happy having spent millions and millions and nobody is using it? This would be the case. What will be this in that one? So you see loads of cars totally being traffic. I don't know which place is that, but that's the truth. And again, traffic. So you got million worth of project and you're making sure that people are using it, but they can't use it properly. So you got to put some rules and regulations for which we need to have proper resource governor. Here you need to have activities, but it's like no activities or too much of activities is also a problem. So you need to ensure that who can do and what they can do. This is the initial screen of how a resource governor would look like. So without any configuration, a resource governor screen will come out with default and internal pool. Internal is totally reserved for SQL Server only. You cannot control it at all, whereas you can make use of default. So internal is like police. So they can come anytime, any lanes, they go whatever speed they want to with the sirens. Before and after config. So before the configuration, what I'm going to show you, the resource governor is going to look like this. After configuration, we are going to see how the resource pools and workload groups are configured. We are going to see extra management things here. And a bad example of how your SQL Server should not run is like one instance bothering the other instance. So you don't want only one user using the whole big project, whereas the other one like overusing it. So these are also your examples, and you're seeing like 40. When you hit the speed of 40, that means you're totally stopped. You don't go beyond that one. So you got plenty of issues in that one and spilling out. So you need to be in a position to take care of what you're trying to run the query. You need to analyze. You want to do some sort of experiments, do it in your own laptop or in your system home, but not in the official environment. The question, resource governor asks, like, am I a resource governor? Yes. So it is better help to manage server resources, activities and prioritize high, medium and low, like who can have access like high CPU usage or low CPU usage, that sort of things. It can categorize them and it can go up to users, databases and then applications and accounts. No, in the sense like I will not control the disk I/O network activities. This is the one what I was saying. So when it was released initially, so it only can control CPU and memory, but not the disk I/O activity. But in 2014, Microsoft have fixed that one, so you have options and features for disk I/O. You can control that too. I'm going to show you simple steps to enable and disable resource governor. So here we have a simple option. Into the management, you go to the resource governor, right click, and you have an option of enable, and you also have option disable. So you simply switch over whichever you want to, or you can run a T-SQL statement where it says alter resource governor, reconfigure. So when you say this, it enables if it is disabled automatically. So you have no enabling option. Reconfigure does it everything. Alter resources governor disable, so that's going to disable it. So you would do it with T-SQL as well as with your graphical things. Let's jump on to the demo. So in this demo, I'm going to give you the same examples of what we have seen. So I'm just trying to give you a clear picture on what we are going to do here. So I'm going to take you through with some sort of scripts. I'm using the master database. So it is not good to use master database at any time, but DBAs need to use some sort of areas where they can store this information in, or you can have it in a separate database. The resource governor runs from master itself. So if you have a small tiny table where it says which user falls under which group, that will enable the resource governor to better perform it. But again, this is not the best practice, but the best practice is to ensure that resource governor can catch each and every users. But if you have loads and loads of users, this is the best method what you can move forward. So I'm just trying to see whom I am having in here. All I can see is system logins. I don't have anyone like what I've spoken for. This is the default settings what you would get. And I also have the AdventureWorks database where I'm trying to see who are the users I have. So these are all the default users. Now, any queries that what you're trying to produce, the best practice is to ensure that if you're trying to drop something or you're trying to create something, you have a proper statement where you know that any time that you're going to run the query, it succeeds. So you need to ensure that if the object exists, drop that and create it. So even if you're preparing for any other sessions, you want to give some sort of queries that will work first time, it will not work for the second time, because they say like we already have the same table or same object, so you cannot create it. So plenty of other questions that you will have. So in here I have the first one, service account APP1. So I have a service account for the application one. So if you have more applications, you can design like you will have more service accounts if you want to. So I've only given an examples here. In here what I'm actually doing is I'm using AdventureWorks database, and I'm seeing if the user exists, I'm dropping, and again I'm going to master database, I'm seeing if the user exists and I'm dropping, and again I'm going to the sys logins and I'm dropping the login, whole login itself. So to enable a user to grant access to the database, you will give the whole login, and then for each database you will create a user using that login. So you need to ensure that you drop them both here or there. If you drop the login, the user will still be there. So you need to ensure that you're doing it and there is no problem with that one in terms of bulletproof. So I'm going to do the same thing for report 1, developer 2, and I have 4 developers over there and the business users. So all it has done now is I have dropped if the user already exists. Then I'm going to begin creating the logins. We don't want to give login access, the user access to the master database for all the developers or all the, all the business users, and also for the developers in various other areas. So you need to ensure that I'm using the master database, I'm creating a login for application 1 with a default password for that particular database, and I'm creating a user for the same account what I have created, and I'm going to master and I'm creating the same user again there. So what we are trying to do here is we are only granting access for this particular application for master as well as AdventureWorks. Yep, I run it already. Then you have, let me try running that one again just to make sure. And I have the account app 1, and I have for the reporting one, we have a service account. We do have the developers one. As you can see here, for the developer, I am not granting access to master. I am only granting access to the database what we have. So these are all the ones for business users, developers, and there you go. So I created them, and I am now trying to see what are the logins exist. I am just trying to show you the architecture of logins and the users. So these are all the already existing ones, plus you see the new ones what we have created just now. Okay. And these are the users what I am seeing from the AdventureWorks database itself. So this is the first one. Then I am going to the user groups. In the slides we have seen that we have 5 business users, 4 developers, application account, service account for applications, and also for the reporting. We had to group them to certain things. So we had 4 groups derived. Before I do anything, I am making sure that I am dropping the table user utype, and then I am creating the table user utype. So basically I am saying resource governor, users, and their user types. It is a simple insert statement where I say service account app 1 belongs to user group application, and reporting belongs to reporting, developers belong to developers, business user belongs to business. So you clearly see we only have 4 groups. Okay, that is done. Now against the master database, I am running a simple statement to see who are the users that I have. When this resource governor is enabled, when you have a new business user, what you have to do is, when you create a new login for them and when you create a new user for them, you are making sure that you are inserting in the master table as well. In this user utype table, you go to insert them. Otherwise, the resource governor classifier function will not pick them and will give them a default pool. So default in the sense like that has got loads of memory and resources to use. Go on.
If you've got authentication via Windows groups, how does resource governor classify those? Or do you need to give each Windows login that might access SQL Server a SQL login?
So your question is like you want to know how Windows would categorize group of users who are coming under AD group.
Yeah.
Okay. So in here, all you have to do is, end of the day, each user fall under the service accounts, right? So you're going to create each user in the login sections, plus you will also sometimes give the whole AD group categorized into the logins. But when you do that logins, you still need to map those particular users in here. They are going to take the route of AD groups coming to the SQL Server, but the SQL Server will not see the AD group, but it will see the users who have logged in. So you got to group those users manually again on this table. Okay, so that's the second one. Now here we go. So this is the main component that what we have in terms of resource governor. The very first part we need to ensure is to drop if anything exists, because we are trying to do a brand new one here. You have a simple function here which says alter resource governor with classified function is equal to null. So you can define as many classified function as you can, like I said earlier, but you can only have one as an active. And now I'm trying to say here, don't make that one active. I'm going to remove the classified function off from the resource governor. And every time I make some changes to the resource governor, you need to reconfigure it. So I'm going to execute that and execute that again separately. Sometimes when you try to run a batch of scripts and you have a reconfigured script on that, sometimes it works and sometimes you have to run it manually again to see the changes to take effect. And in here I have created a function called ysum resource governor underscore CLFN. So I'm making sure that I'm dropping that now, and I'm going to the master database and I'm trying to delete if any workloads groups or if any resource pool exists. So, as you can see here, there nothing exists, and as you can see on this bit, you can see the resource governor icon is like down arrow, that means it is not enabled. Is it much easier with this one? So, I am deleting the work group first, then I am deleting the resource pool next. So, all you have to is a simple statement to say if the object exists, delete, and then recreate whatever you want to. So, now I am deleting, dropping the tables, I am dropping the resource pools and the configuration, and again I am trying to do a reconfigure to make sure that really works. Then I am making sure to run the disable statement, which I have already shown you, execute. Let's see what happens here. I am going to refresh this. You can see that is still showing down, but even though I have deleted, I can't delete, I can't make modification anything to the default and the internal group. I am simply passing this statement alter resource governor reconfigure and execute that. You can see commands completed successfully. So, again I go to resource governor and refresh. You can see the button is gone, like it is enabled now. Okay. This is one of the DMVs what I was saying you earlier. This resource governor configuration gives us what is available in here now. So, it says 0, 0. So, there is nothing configured at the moment. Now, let us start creating the resource pool. So, select start from resource governor resource pools, and I am trying to see, I can see the resource pool what we have for internal and default. So, like I said earlier, internal is one thing that will be made use of SQL Server for all its internal purpose. You cannot make use of it. It makes use of all the resources whatever it wants to. Default is the one what you can control, and you can allocate if anything is being classified function is not picking up, they all go to default by default. And in here we have the service account, CPU usage, for which you will have the same application you are making sure you are dropping, and again you are creating a new resource pool. In here I am saying create resource pool RP application. RP stands for resource pool. So, anything you got to have a proper naming conventions for any of your work groups or configuration whatever you do in terms of these. So, also make sure that you have no blank spaces. In here you are saying minimum CPU percent is 30, minimum memory percent is 30, and max is 70 and max is 70. So, what it says is like it reserves the minimum amount what is being given. If you have 5 or more resource pools, all your sum of these minimum configuration should not go to beyond 100, because that reserves the actual capacity of the usage. So, I am going to create this, execute, and let me refresh and show you what we see here. You can see immediately we have a RP application and there is no workload group defined. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, is max memory the maximum of the max server memory on the instance, or the memory on the actual server itself?
I'm sorry, you got to repeat.
When you set the memory limit,
Yeah.
is that based on the max server memory or SQL Server config?
No, not that one. So, this is only for this particular pool what we are trying to set. So, the maximum memory settings is that's different for the whole server, for the whole instance actually. So, this does not overtake that one. So, this is a separate one reserved only for this governor.
So this is percentage of what?
Available resource. So, let us say you have 12 GB of memory.
So is that the SQL Server maximum memory is allocated 12 GB, so it's 70%
70% of whatever is allocated, but you have to think that 12 GB is not the actual one will be taken by SQL Server. It already occupies 2.5 to 3 GB for its own purpose. Whatever is left over is only what you can use of it. So, not everything 100% you will have it.
So is it max server memory or the actual allocated to the actual physical server?
What is allocated to that particular instance? So, in a server you can have 10 instances. So, if you have 12 GB and you give max memory only for one instance, not for the whole server. Yeah. So, underneath that one instance you will have to configure whatever is available on that with this resource governor. Okay. Then I am moving to create the other pools. So, in here I have the RP reporting. For RP reporting I am only saying max CPU percent is 20 and max memory percent is 10. I am not reserving anything for this. I am only giving max what it can make use of. For developers I am giving max CPU percent 10 and max memory percent as 5. And for the business user I am giving only 2%. But business users will always cry saying that my queries are always slow. Ignore that. Anyway, his queries may bring the whole server down. So, you are trying to give minimum resource. They are not going to give much congestion to the whole server. But apparently, when you do not have this resource governor enabled, you also can see that the business will say my users, my application users are saying that the whole application is very slow. IT, what are you doing with that? IT is always a scapegoat, so they have to blame somebody. In this instance, what will you understand? It will be very hard for you to explain that all your business users are querying the same server and you are occupying much of the resources. In that instance, the applications are definitely slow down. So, you got to take care of that one. So, you need to have proper resource governor in place, identify, have a proper SLA, this is what we are going to give. If this is not happy with, then what we have to do is you have your own separate server. Somehow you get the database replicated or only get enough database and tables for their reporting systems, and you can have a separate one. Go on.
Is there anything called query governor, like if there are normal queries users are sending, we want to allow them, but if they are writing some kind of a very large complex query which they don't know what they are writing, so can you do kind of a query governor? If this kind of query comes, it shouldn't be after some time, it's very memory intensive, we should stop it and allow others.
Unfortunately, you can't immediately go and scan the queries, but you can scan who is running it. So, if you say like, if you know specifically out of 5 business user, the 4th user is always one who is a new trainee, he wants to learn now, then you can see, you can have a watch out of those ones. Plus, you can have separate scripts to see what queries they are running for your further analysis in the future to say this query was the main blockage of this particular problem with the resources. Then you have to do it like after reactive measures. I don't know whether I just created, let me execute that again, and I am going to refresh this. Okay, I got I got 4 resource pools over here, and I am going to create the workload group and allocate the workload group to the resource pool. And once I have done this, I am trying to see what do I have in my resource pools. You can write a simple DMVs. I just created in front of you, but now I do not see it in my DMV what happens. So, like I said, anytime you are making some sort of changes in your resource governor configuration, you need to say reconfigure to the latest. So, execute that and see for yourself what is actually coming after that. Then you can see the pool ID is 256596061, where it has created RP application, reporting, developers and business. So, these are the 4 resource pools what we have created so far. Let us take a look at the workload groups. In here you have internal and default. You are going to create a application work group. Before that, you are making sure if it exists, you are dropping it. Then create workload group. Here you are trying to give group max request 0. You are setting the importance to high, request max CPU time. It is only initial setup, you can go for very minimal ones. Then later you can play it with GUI interface. So, it will make your life easier to visually see what happens after you are done in the GUI format. So, I will show you once I have configured that. So, once I have created that workload group and I am assigning to make use of the RP application. If I am going to reconfigure it something mismatched, say for example, for WG application, if I give RP underscore business, that is going to be your problem. Okay? So, you need to ensure what you are configuring. That is why people say like resource governor is an advanced thing, not basic users cannot actually make use of it. So, until here I am creating the workload groups and using the relevant resource pools. Now, as I said, I am going to reconfigure that again, and let us see what is there. In here you can see you also have pool ID. So, whatever group ID is being created here has got a referencing pool ID. So, when you said using, that means it has used the right pool. Let us try to refresh the workload groups here, and in here you can see you got the WG application. So, you will have each one of them beneath that. Let us take a quick look at how the resource governor looks now. Right click and say properties, you will get to this screen where you will have an opportunity to see everything in one place. What is the minimum CPU, maximum CPU, minimum memory and max memory. As you can see here in internal ones, I can click on it, but I cannot edit anything on this, whereas for other pools I can do if I want to. I can go and make modifications over here. I will show you how you can make the modifications, but before then we need to assign the functions. Sorry, go on.
Sorry. So you got a default pool.
Yeah.
And the user defined one as well. Does the default one take precedence over the user defined one, or like RP application business?
It will take the default path if the classified function is not showing up. Say for example, you have 5 business users. If you create a 6th business user and if you are not adding them to the master table where we added, they will go into default, yeah, because they have not been configured by the function. So, classified function name, it says none. So, no point in configuring enabling the resource governor workload groups unless you have a proper classified function name on it. We are going to configure that, then again let us come back to this and see how you can make modifications in the GUI to make your life much easier. So, this is a simple to use classifier function. I will also give you another advanced one, I will show you that. Before that we are going to make sure that if the classifier function exists, drop that, and I am creating the function. It is a simple classifier function, create function, function name. It has to return the sysname with schema binding as you are going to begin. In the return statement, whatever comes out. So, in here it has to come out either with application or reporting or developers or business. If none of them are here, like you said, business user 6 will take the default. So, anything that returns here will be applied to this classifier function. What I have said here is, I have written a simple case statement, select case when yes user name in this username from this type. So, let me execute that. You can see this service up 1. So, we only have 1 users. If I do the developers one, I can see all the 5 business users. So, this is the place where you are actually routing which user can go into which pool. Let us create that. Once you have done, it is not finished yet, you only created it, you have not assigned it. So, you are going to assign it. So, alter resource governor with classifier function is equal to that. So, alter the resource governor with this classifier function as the latest, and you have to reconfigure it. Yeah, go on.
Now, in this example, if you use simple logins, which is easy to map because you can quite easily work out the S username function.
Yeah.
What if you've got AD groups, and in those groups, you've got individual accounts in there? How would you work out?
Like I said, AD group is only a place for any users to log into the server. They are not configured in the server actually. So, if a user has got access to database A and the same user has got database do not have access to database B, but he has got access to the group which has access to database B, he would still be able to access the database.
So how would you work out what pool they belong to if they're coming through a group and not necessarily through the individual accounts?
The individual accounts who are logs in, the system can identify what login it is, right. So, with that login it will go, you need to program that in the master database table what we have created initially. So, when it identifies in that group, then obviously it routes to that particular pool. Plus you also can set this pool not only with the usernames, but also with database levels, so which I will show you later. Yep.
I'm guessing that you can probably set up SQLR function or something like that, which could take the username, interrogate AD, and find which group the person is in, and then use the result of that within the classifier function.
Yes, you can do it. Like I said, you can, instead of this, you can say if username is equal to service account app1, that is again going to say this login, but you have to write the number of classifier function, whatever you write, every time you have to reconfigure the function. Once we have done the configuration, we are not going to touch that again. We're going to make sure that the architecture is being placed, done. Anymore, you go into that particular group in the master table. So why did they, what is the reason for having AD group? So we are making sure that any settings that has been given only to the AD group, if any new users are going to come out, we're not going to sit manually and do it. We're simply going to add to the group. So in similar way, we're going to add them to the particular table with right grouping, whatever you want to allocate to.
Can we categorize these pools and groups based on application name rather than logins?
Yeah, of course. Okay, the configuration is done now. Let's take a quick look at, wait, let me refresh that and go to properties. So this is what we see after we have the classified function enabled. Now you can see initially it was none and now it is YSM rgov underscore classified function. In here, this function, under default, you can set your minimum CPU. If you say you want the minimum CPU for default, anyone apart from these pool list, you want to give them 40% of the CPU, you can give them here. And maximum, they don't want to take the maximum CPU, it's only for the internal things. You want to make sure, imagine in your other case, like if business user 6 and if he's not configured, he's going to hit the pool with 100% because of the default. So these are all the areas where you need to be keeping things in mind how you would architect your solution. So in here, definitely you're not going to say 100, so you try to give a default to say max of 60, unless you know what the classified function does. And minimum memory over here, you're going to say 20, and maximum you can say 50. Any changes that you have done to default is not completed there, but the workload group you can set their priority whether it is low, medium or high. Yep. And you also have other things, maximum grant percentage. So what I have implemented in last 6-7 years over the various corporate clients are like, we need to ensure that you are giving enough access to the applications always, give them the first priority route. Plenty of places where they have problem in accessing the other instances and getting the information. Performance do have problem like in various other areas, but should not come from the contentions because of the wrong queries or because of the wrong users running on the live systems. So these are the problems what has to be overtaken by the DBAs. And in here application, I'm going to definitely say, initially I said when I designed my workload group and saying it is high definitely. For the business, I did not say anything. They are coming in medium, even though I've given 2%. So I'm going to say definitely they are going to be low. I only said 2 and 2 over here, but here they are having 25. So I'm not going to give definitely 25, so just 5. It's based on what sort of users you have. You know what we are trying to do here. Developers, by default, this is what it gets configured. You're not going to apply this immediately, but what you can do is, you can script out, which will say whatever changes you have done, it will be here. It makes your life much easier. For any GUI interface, we always have script out options nowadays with all the SQL Server features. So this will make your life much easier. We are running out of time, so I'm going to make sure that I'm showing you a real life demo on how the fluctuations would go this side and that side. I'm not going to make the changes here. I'm going to say cancel, but only one I'm going to do. I'm definitely going to give for business low, memory 5. All I'm going to do is just that. Others fall in medium, application falls in high. When I said OK, and if I try to run these scripts again, this will be overtaken by the other one. Yeah. Okay, let's get into action now. Before we try to do something, I want to make sure any sessions that are running at the moment in the server falls into the proper category. As you can see, default is the pool if anything is not been categorized. So my user account over here called many surface user /Paramasivam, this one do not fall under anything. So you can see my sessions fall under default category, anything that I run. So DBAs will have backroads. They won't categorize and classify themselves in the classifier function. They will make use of default. When I am trying to run set of queries, we are going to make sure that these default changes to based on whatever we have configured now. This is one more important query to see if the configured resource governor works good or not. In here we can see default, internal, RP, application, business, developers and reporting, all are zeros. It actually captures how many requests been handled, what is the average CPU being provided. So plenty of things will be seen over here. So right now there are no activities. This session, this query is going to give you number of connections per logins per database. So here Paramasivam account have got 7 connections against master, and again the same account has got 1 connection against AdventureWorks 2012 database, and you have the other reporting server and SA account. So when I am trying to run the scripts which is going to show like how business users or developers going to run, we are going to see the activities that is going to happen in the sessions, and we are going to capture them all here with the various queries of what I have shown here. Okay, I have a simple batch file for each individual groups. So I have got a business users. Before I hit that, I am going to start my perform. I am going to delete that. I am going to add. So this is the other one what I was saying, performance counters. So with this counter you can see the resource pools and the workload group stats. Got the resource pool stats over here, CPU usage. So once you click on that workload group, it immediately picks up what are the resource pools are available over here, right. So we are going to see about the CPU usage, we are going to see about the memory grants per second, target and used memory, and I am going down to workload group. I am going to click on add, so that got there, and you have the active requests and reduced memory grants per second. So some of these informations, as you can see, this is the activity that is actually happening in the performance monitor in the actual server. Plus you also have other areas like task manager, and you can go to your performance to see how it actually performs. How many of you are fans of say simple task manager performance, and how many of you use performon? All of you, good. So you make use of the stats. What are the other purposes that you use in the performon to see what sort of stats about the SQL Server things only? Oh, okay, that's good. So you know what actually it's been used for. That's good. Okay, I'm going to hit the button over here, which is going to be the autopilot here. So hit it. Let's see what happens over here. You see the CPU activity spikes, and you see suddenly something picked up. Hang on a second, I did not give these business for about 50% of the CPU access, CPU usage. How did that happen? So the resource governor is a bit brilliant, intelligent enough to say there are nothing running on the server, you are the only person, like you have seen the bicycles going on the motorways, right? So it's the same example. Nobody is there, take whatever lanes you want. So it picks automatically. If somebody is there, it will not allow. So we'll see that in action too. And what are the other ones you have? So, you can sort it by instance, and in here you can see application. We do not have anything in the application. Let me go back to the counter and see for default, nothing internal, nothing applications, you do not see anything. Business, obviously you see the big lines going out, RP developers and reporting, there is nothing going on. What happens if I am going to start the developers one? You got to have good things, I mean like good environment. Do not try to do this in your work environment at all, because when I was trying to do these scripts, when I was building up, my system got hanged many number of times because too much of activity going on. So, I had reduced as much as I can to make sure that we have no issues in seeing this demo. There you go. So, my PC starts picking up. You can see now something is going up now. What is it? RP developers. So, developers obviously is being given. Do you see at that single point when something came up, the activity on the business went down a bit to 38, 37%. So, developers. So, I have selected them both here. So, you can see immediately whatever queries that you are running, it takes the memory and CPU usage to whatever is been allocated. So, it is not abusing, it is not overusing that one. When I am running this, I am trying to stop the first bits. What happens now? So, the business, I have killed the business sessions, everything. So, that has come down, and you can see immediately this has gone up, because it knows very clearly that the server is free. You have more lanes, no cost, nothing going on. Let me take whatever lane I want, right. So, this is one of the other example. Now, that is bigger than developer. Let us give a high priority to the reporting now. I am going to hit that. Let me select reporting and developers now. In terms of your reporting and developers, you see that weird things are happening now, where developers are not given enough of usage, CPU usage and the memory resources, but the reporting was given, but it is going down. Now, let me kill the developers one. And you see that there are more resources available, so this picked up, and that has gone down totally. Now, we have the two big guys in the fight. So, let us see who is coming next, the applications. So, this is what we have given maximum. Let us run the application. So, in terms of applications there, and you have the reporting over there. So, the reporting's resources have come down, and you have the reporting applications going up. For applications, for that particular one with that sort of memory, it does not have much to use on. Again, end of the day, the scripts are all the same, but it is trying to make use of as much as resources is required, it is making use of that many number of things. But we clearly see the activities this side and the other side. Let us bring the business on board. So, 3 people on the row. The first one reporting has gone down because it was running prior to the other one. So, I have the queries. What it does is like for the first few minutes it runs very intensively, then at the later stage it comes down a bit. And over here you can see this has taken the lead, hello, and RP applications over here. So, you can see a clear activities and clear distinctions of lanes what they can make use of. So, this is something a DBA or admin who have to architect the systems to ensure who can use what lane with what levels of resources. But by default you can see the memories here for the business, that the target memory was given is only about whatever has been provided over there. Hello, my system is slowing down because of too much of resources going on, and you can see the internal one always stays high. Right. So these are all the very good examples. Like, let me try to kill a few things. So everything has gone down. We are going to go back to the queries of usage, what happened. While some of these sessions are running, let's go back to this and see and execute that. You see, initially we only saw default, right now we only have application running. So application I've got about 5 sessions, and that comes under service account app 1, which is against the AdventureWorks database. Let's quickly take a look to see whether RG works fine or not. Here you have the measures, you can see all of them are filled in, what it has taken. So you can see the same performance counter being stored in these DMVs, and you can get that out. And in here, you can go back and see which user are using the server and with how many number of connections against each database. So this is a good breakdown to see who is having what access, and the configured resource governor works fine or not, and the new system what we have put in place works good or not. So these are all the things what you have to cover in your area and well document it. I'm going to show you quick another example of running the business one. Again, and execute that. You see these ones jumping up, and you can clearly see the reporting, business, so reporting, business and application. So 3 different groups are running. So this is how you would see how a configured resource governor will perform much better for your SQL Server environment, makes your life much easier. Does it make sense? Do you see it in action, like how you make use of the pools and how each sessions are connected to against each databases and how you can configure it? All the scripts will be available upon completion of these sessions in the SQLBITS site. Now a quick one on this. So you see these ones, at one point you want to do a retest again, but these numbers are already there. What you need to do in terms of closing that out? So you have a reset statistics option. Before I do that, I'm trying to close my sessions. Okay. So let me try run and see what is the accumulated one value. So we have the application, business, developers and reporting, and you can clearly see what is the amount of memory is being targeted over for application, and you can see how the reporting is taken. Whatever you prioritized, you see the numbers changing, which makes our life much easier. You can reset the whole statistics with a simple one thing and run your query again back, and there you go. Or reset. Please feel free to experiment these in your own systems. Do not do in even in your development environment, please. Okay. All right. Going back to the slides, I got one more thing. I'm sure the examples what I've provided on these slides makes your life much easier in understanding how the lane discipline would work in resource governor when you're trying to configure that. So this is like a summary. We take a quick look at what we need actually. And in here we have seen these configurations after all our scripts are executed. And once when you see these things in action, it's all happy days. You see cars moving very quickly, and the fast lane goes faster and the slow lanes go slower. So this is what we want to see in our live environment. I hope you have made use of this. Again, thanks for coming down for SQLBITS, and thank you all. So any questions? So,
Have you made all these things in a separate database?
Sorry, you need to be bit.
Can we create all these things in a separate database?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Can we create a separate utility database and create all the steps?
I'll show you a quick one because that will help you to see what we can do in terms of a separate database itself. So in here, this is another example of how you would classify. So you would have a work group name for a separate SE account. You have based on application's name. So you have a function called app_name for a management studio. For a database itself, you will have a db_name. So with this function, let me zoom that up. With this function, you will have this, say for example, you have a replication database for which you need to give high priority. Any activities going on that server, that particular database, you can give a separate pool for that. Right? So you have these are the various other functions that can make your life much easier. Yep.
We have a consolidated SQL with loads of different databases and different application things. Do you have a recommended way to actually implement resource governance as well to be able to release the use of resources?
You would definitely need at one point of time because end of the day, resource governor is going to be helpful for every one of us, particularly DBAs can sleep properly. And in terms of having too many number of applications, and if you have too many number of instances in your server, if you're trying to do this resource governor bit, you need to have a separate admin side where you will see, if it is just one server, it makes your life much easier. Imagine if you have 50 servers and you're doing the same resource governor, that's going to make life much hard. So you need to ensure that you have proper admin perspective where you can read through and hear and have proper escalation levels on if one goes down, then how you can pick up the other ones. So I hope I answered your question. If not, we can have a catch up after the session.
What are the scripts going to be?
Scripts, everything will be available online in SQLBITS.
Can we use resource governor to regulate 10 dB space usage?
For 10 dB, it's a different story actually. You don't want to touch resource governor for 10 dB. You don't want to do it at all. But 10 dB, you will have different sessions, different things for that one. I already had one more session about 10 dB where you can make your like performance wise, you can make it much good. But 10 dB is also another bottleneck for everyone.
There's nothing you can configure within this.
You can, if you want to, you can configure those ones. But again, 10 dB, end of the day, whatever you're doing, once it's gone, it's gone. When your server, you're restarting the server, anything in the 10 dB, all files are gone in that one.
Talk about a specific problem we have. We have business users who run T-SQL, ad hoc T-SQL, and certain occasions they take up the entire 10 dB space, cause the SQL to go down.
Can we have this session after this one? Yeah, sure. Thank you all. Cheers.